Hey guys, tonight we're exploring a story that everyone in history should know. The story is Medieval Plague's Biggest Failed Mistakes. You get comfortable, take a moment, like the video, and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Medieval Plague's Biggest Failed Mistakes. Imagine that the world has become wonderfully quiet. The day has almost ended, and a cool evening breeze drifts gently across the fields of medieval Europe. The sky glows with soft shades of orange before fading into deep blue. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings its familiar note, marking another ordinary day. Smoke rises lazily from small cottages where families gather around simple fires. Bread is baking. A pot of vegetable stew slowly bubbles over warm coals. Chickens settle onto their wooden perches, while sheep huddle together behind rough fences. Nothing seems unusual. If you had lived here, you would have believed tomorrow would arrive much like today. Crops would still need tending. Water would still have to be carried from the village well. Bread would still be baked before sunrise. The rhythm of life felt dependable, almost timeless. Yet history often changes without announcing itself. Long before people realized that one of the greatest disasters in European history was approaching, countless ordinary evenings passed just like this one. Men repaired wooden tools, women spun wool beside flickering candlelight. Children listened to stories told by grandparents who remembered harsh winters and good harvests. Travelers rested in roadside inns after days spent walking muddy roads between towns. No one knew that invisible passengers were already beginning a journey of their own. Tonight, however, we begin before those difficult years arrive. To understand the greatest mistakes made during the medieval plague, it helps first to understand the world that existed before fear entered everyday life. Picture yourself standing on a gentle hillside overlooking a small English village, sometime during the early 14th century. The air carries the fresh scent of damp grass mixed with wood smoke. Thin clouds drift quietly overhead. Narrow paths connect cottages built from timber, stone, and woven branches covered with clay. Their roofs are made from straw that rustles softly whenever the wind passes across them. The village is not large. Perhaps only a few hundred people live here. Everyone knows everyone else. Names are remembered across generations. Families work the same fields their grandparents once cultivated. Births, marriages, and funerals are shared experiences rather than private moments. Life is demanding, but it also follows familiar patterns. As the morning slowly arrives each day, roosters announce the sunrise before the first light reaches the fields. Farmers begin work early because daylight is precious. Oxen slowly pull wooden plows through heavy soil. Horses are valuable, but many families cannot afford them. Strong hands remain the most dependable tools. Most people spend nearly every hour working simply to produce enough food for the coming winter. There are no supermarkets, no refrigerators, no machines to make labor easier. Everything depends upon seasons, weather, healthy animals, and good fortune. A single failed harvest can create hunger. 2 failed harvests can bring famine. Many medieval people understand hardship long before they ever hear the word plague. Even so, communities learn to endure. Neighbors share tools. Families exchange labor. Children begin helping their parents from an early age, carrying water, collecting firewood, feeding animals, or gathering eggs before breakfast. Education, as we know it today, is rare. Most villagers cannot read. Books are expensive because every page must be copied by hand. Instead, knowledge travels through conversation. Parents teach children, Priests teach their congregations. Travelers bring stories from distant lands. Memory becomes one of the greatest libraries anyone possesses. Imagine walking through the village marketplace on a pleasant autumn afternoon. The ground beneath your feet is uneven. Wooden stalls display vegetables, onions, beans, apples, smoked fish, rough cloth, candles, and freshly baked loaves. Chickens wander freely between customers. Dogs patiently wait beneath tables in hopes that someone might drop a scrap of meat. Voices rise and fall in friendly conversation. Someone bargains over cheese. Another discusses the weather. A blacksmith's hammer echoes steadily against glowing iron. Nearby, the smell of leather drifts from the workshop of a shoemaker patiently repairing worn boots. These simple sounds form the background music of medieval life. Most people rarely travel very far. A journey of 30 or 40 miles may seem like a remarkable adventure. Roads are often muddy. Bridges can be unreliable. Dense forests cover much of the countryside, making travel slower and sometimes dangerous. Because journeys require time, news also travels slowly. A rumor may take weeks to move from one kingdom to another. Letters exist, but only a small number of people regularly send them. Instead, merchants, monks, sailors, and pilgrims become living messengers, carrying information from one community to the next. Sometimes those messages are accurate. Sometimes they change with every telling. This slow movement of information will later become one of history's quiet challenges. When danger begins approaching, many people simply will not know. Religion shapes nearly every part of daily life. Church bells mark the hours. Holy days determine festivals. The local priest often becomes not only a spiritual guide, but also an advisor, teacher, and trusted member of the community. Many people sincerely believe that every event in life has meaning. A good harvest may be seen as a blessing. A violent storm may be understood as a warning. Illness often carries both physical and spiritual significance. Medical knowledge during this period is limited by modern standards, yet it is not without careful observation. Many healers know which herbs can soothe pain or reduce fever. Monasteries preserve valuable medical writings copied from earlier civilizations. Physicians study ideas inherited from ancient Greek and Roman scholars. One of the most influential beliefs concerns the balance of four bodily humors. According to this theory, health depends upon maintaining harmony between blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Although modern medicine has shown this idea to be incorrect, it remains one of the most respected medical explanations of the medieval world. Doctors sincerely wish to help. They simply work with the best understanding available to them. Imagine visiting a physician in a busy medieval town. His room smells faintly of dried herbs hanging from wooden beams. Shelves hold carefully labeled jars containing roots, leaves, flowers, oils, and powders collected throughout the seasons. Light enters through a narrow window. A wooden table supports handwritten manuscripts copied with remarkable patience. The physician listens carefully before offering advice. He observes skin color. He feels the pulse. He asks questions about sleep, appetite, and pain. Many treatments may seem unusual today. Some involve herbal mixtures. Others recommend changes in diet. Bloodletting is also common because physicians believe removing blood may restore balance within the body. Their intentions are thoughtful, even when their conclusions are mistaken. This distinction matters. History is rarely divided between wise people and foolish people. Far more often, it is filled with intelligent individuals doing their best while lacking information that future generations will eventually discover. As evening settles once again over the countryside, families gather indoors. Candles burn softly. Simple prayers are spoken before supper. The meal is modest, Perhaps dark bread, onions, beans, cheese, and ale. Fresh meat appears less frequently than many modern people imagine. For ordinary villagers, meat remains a luxury enjoyed mainly during special occasions. Conversation centers on familiar concerns. Will next year's harvest be good? Will taxes increase? Will a neighboring village celebrate an upcoming festival? Has anyone heard news from the nearest city? Outside, stars slowly appear overhead. Without electric lights, the night sky reveals remarkable beauty. The Milky Way stretches clearly across the darkness. Owls quietly call from nearby woods. The cool air carries the scent of damp earth after sunset. Many people fall asleep soon after darkness arrives because tomorrow's work begins before dawn. Days blend gently into weeks. Weeks become seasons. Years pass almost unnoticed. Across Europe, countless villages experience similar routines. From England to France, from the German lands to northern Italy, from mountain valleys to coastal fishing towns. Life remains deeply connected to nature's steady rhythm. Yet the medieval world is not isolated. Far beyond these peaceful villages, great cities are growing. Merchant ships cross seas carrying spices, silk, grain, wool, timber, salt, and precious metals. Caravans move across distant trade routes connecting Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. These commercial networks bring prosperity. They also connect civilizations more closely than ever before. Imagine standing beside a busy Mediterranean harbor. The morning sun reflects from gentle waves. Large merchant vessels rock quietly against wooden docks. Sailors shout to one another while unloading barrels, sacks of grain, wine, olive oil, cloth, and spices, whose fragrances mingle pleasantly in the sea air. Languages from many lands fill the marketplace. A merchant from Venice bargains with traders from distant regions. A sailor describes storms survived during his voyage. Pilgrims prepare for journeys toward sacred destinations. Animals wait patiently beside loaded wagons. Every arriving ship carries visible cargo. But unseen passengers may also travel aboard. Tiny creatures hidden among supplies, invisible organisms no human eye can detect. No one standing here understands that such small companions could someday change the course of history. It is not ignorance born from carelessness. The microscope has not yet been invented. The existence of bacteria remains unknown. The role of fleas remains hidden. The movement of disease through microscopic life is entirely beyond human understanding. This is one of history's greatest reminders of humility. People can only explain what they are capable of observing. Imagine trying to solve a mystery while blindfolded. Every clue would seem confusing. Every answer would remain uncertain. That is the position medieval physicians, rulers, priests, and ordinary families will soon face. As peaceful evenings continue across Europe, weather quietly changes with the seasons. Spring brings blossoms. Summer fills fields with growing grain. Autumn colors forests in shades of golden red. Winter covers rooftops with frost. Years before the Black Death arrives, Europe has already endured difficult harvests caused by unusually wet weather. Heavy rains damage crops. Food becomes scarcer in some regions. Malnutrition weakens many people. Although no one realizes it, communities struggling with hunger often become less able to resist serious illness. One hardship quietly prepares the way for another. History sometimes unfolds through such gentle connections rather than sudden events. No single mistake creates catastrophe. Instead, many small circumstances slowly gather together until they become impossible to separate. A poor harvest, crowded towns, busy trade routes, limited medical knowledge, slow communication, deep religious faith, traditional healing practices. Each appears ordinary when viewed alone. Together they form the world into which the plague will eventually arrive. For now, though, life continues. Children laugh while chasing one another across village greens. Mill wheels turn steadily beside flowing rivers. Monks patiently copy books by candlelight. Fishermen repair nets before dawn. Shepherds guide flocks across quiet hillsides. Blacksmiths shape iron beside glowing furnaces. Everyday life remains wonderfully ordinary. No one imagines that future generations will remember these years as the calm before one of humanity's greatest challenges. If you could quietly whisper into the ears of these peaceful villagers, warning them about what lies ahead, they would almost certainly struggle to believe you. How could an illness spread across entire continents? How could healthy towns become silent? How could familiar customs suddenly become dangerous? Such ideas would seem almost impossible. Yet history often asks ordinary people to face extraordinary circumstances. As the night grows deeper, gentle winds move across empty roads leading toward distant cities. Somewhere beyond the horizon, merchants continue their journeys. Ships continue crossing familiar seas. Trade continues connecting cultures separated by thousands of miles. The same roads that carry friendship, knowledge, food, and opportunity will also carry something no traveler intends to bring. For now, however, Europe sleeps peacefully beneath quiet stars. The villages remain still. The markets wait for tomorrow. The church bells will soon welcome another ordinary morning. And somewhere far beyond the familiar horizon, the first quiet chapters of an unexpected story have already begun. Imagine the first light of dawn spreading slowly across a distant landscape far beyond the familiar villages of Western Europe. The air is cool, carrying the scent of dry grass and earth that has rested through the night. Birds begin their morning songs as merchants prepare their animals for another day on the road. Camels kneel patiently while bundles of silk, spices, carved wood, and carefully wrapped ceramics are secured for a long journey. Horses stamp gently against the ground, eager to move once more. You find yourself standing beside one of the great trade routes that have connected civilizations for centuries. These roads are not merely paths across land. They are rivers of conversation. Ideas, inventions, religions, languages, and goods all travel along them, changing slowly as they pass from one region to another. Every traveler carries a story. Every caravan adds another thread to the vast fabric connecting Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. Long before anyone speaks of plague, these routes are already among humanity's greatest achievements. Imagine watching a merchant greet an old friend from another city. Their languages differ, yet years of trading have taught them enough words to understand one another. They exchange smiles before discussing prices for pepper, cinnamon, wool, and fine cloth. Nearby, cooks prepare a simple breakfast. Warm bread bakes over small fires. The gentle aroma of herbs drifts into the cool morning air. Life feels peaceful. Travel feels hopeful. No one suspects that unseen companions may also be making the journey. In the 14th century, the world is more connected than many people today imagine. Although travel is much slower than in the modern age, thousands of merchants move steadily between kingdoms every year. Ships cross the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. Caravans travel through deserts and mountain passes. Rivers carry barges loaded with grain and timber. Every route creates new opportunities for trade. These connections enrich societies. They also create pathways that illnesses can unknowingly follow. At this time, no physician understands that tiny bacteria can cause disease. No sailor examines a ship's cargo for microscopic danger. No merchant believes that an apparently healthy journey could quietly transport illness over enormous distances. Such knowledge belongs many centuries in the future. Instead, people explain sickness using the ideas available to them. Some believe unusual weather influences health. Others look toward the stars, believing that the movement of planets may affect human bodies. many continue relying upon the ancient theory of bodily humors. These explanations seem reasonable because there is little evidence suggesting otherwise. History often reminds us that people cannot solve problems they cannot yet see. As the morning slowly arrives, picture yourself walking through a thriving city somewhere along these eastern trade routes. Stone buildings rise beside busy streets. Markets overflow with merchants selling fruit, spices, woven carpets, metal tools, pottery, and colorful fabrics. Water splashes gently from public fountains where travelers pause to drink. Children weave between crowds carrying baskets for their parents. Craftsmen shape wood with practiced hands. Bakers remove warm loaves from clay ovens. The rich scent of fresh bread mixes with fragrant spices arriving from distant lands. Every face reflects ordinary concerns rather than fear. Life is moving forward exactly as expected. Far beyond Europe, powerful empires influence enormous stretches of land. Trade flourishes because long-distance routes remain comparatively secure in many regions. Caravans travel farther than previous generations could have imagined. Goods that begin their journey in one corner of Asia may eventually reach markets thousands of miles away. Every successful journey encourages another. Merchants become increasingly confident. Cities grow wealthier. Ports become busier. The movement of people steadily increases. No one intends to carry disease, yet diseases do not require intention. They simply move whenever opportunities appear. Imagine a warehouse near a bustling harbor. Large sacks of grain rest against wooden walls. Coils of rope lie neatly arranged beside barrels of olive oil. Sailors laugh together after unloading another vessel. Small animals search quietly for scattered grains of food among the cargo. Most people pay little attention to these creatures. Rats are common. They live wherever food can be found. Warehouses, ships, granaries, and marketplaces all provide suitable homes. To medieval people, rats are unpleasant but ordinary. Few imagine they might play any important role in human illness. Even if someone had suspected such a connection, they would have lacked the scientific tools needed to prove it. Today we understand far more. Modern research shows that the bacterium Yersinia pestis causes plague. Fleas feeding on infected rodents can sometimes spread this bacterium to other animals and to humans. During the medieval pandemic, several transmission routes likely contributed to the spread, including flea-borne infection and, in some cases, person-to-person spread of pneumonic plague. None of this is visible to the people living through those years. Their world remains filled with mysteries hidden beneath everyday life. Imagine boarding a merchant ship preparing to leave port. The wooden deck creaks softly beneath your feet. Canvas sails flutter in the morning breeze. Seagulls circle overhead, calling across the water. Crew members secure ropes with practiced movements, while the captain studies the weather. Below deck, supplies fill every available space. Grain, wine, cloth, tools, dried fruit, salted fish. Every item has been carefully packed for the voyage ahead. The journey may last weeks. Storms may delay progress. Pirates remain a possibility in certain waters. Yet experienced sailors accept these risks as part of their profession. Invisible dangers never enter their conversations. As the ship slowly leaves the harbor, the coastline gradually disappears into the distance. Days pass. The sea changes constantly. Sometimes the water lies perfectly calm beneath bright blue skies. Other days bring strong winds and towering waves that test both ship and crew. During quiet evenings, sailors gather for simple meals. They tell stories about distant cities. Some speak of prosperous markets. Others describe magnificent buildings they have seen abroad. Occasionally, someone shares unusual rumors heard from another port. At first, these stories seem uncertain. a strange sickness somewhere far away, a town experiencing unexpected deaths, travelers becoming ill after reaching certain regions. Such accounts are easy to dismiss. Every generation experiences outbreaks of disease. Most remain local. Few continue traveling. Rumors grow naturally during long journeys. Many disappear before anyone confirms them. Picture yourself sitting beside a fire at a roadside inn. Outside, gentle rain taps against the wooden roof. Inside, travelers warm themselves after a long day. One merchant quietly mentions hearing that a distant city has suffered an unusually severe illness. Another shrugs politely. Perhaps the story has been exaggerated. Someone else suggests it might simply be another difficult winter fever. The conversation soon returns to trade, weather, and tomorrow's route. No one grows alarmed. This reaction is understandable. Extraordinary events rarely appear extraordinary when they first begin. Most historical disasters arrive disguised as ordinary problems. Only later do people recognize the beginning. As weeks become months, similar stories slowly appear elsewhere. Not identical, not always consistent. Simply small reports scattered across enormous distances. One caravan leader speaks of abandoned villages. A sailor recalls hearing that a busy port has become strangely quiet. Another traveler mentions increased funerals in a distant city. Each story remains uncertain. Communication during the medieval period is slow. Verifying information requires time. A rumor may arrive long before reliable evidence. Some reports prove accurate. Others become distorted as they pass from person to person. Imagine trying to understand events hundreds of miles away without newspapers, telephones, radio, or the internet. Every piece of information depends upon human memory. Every messenger adds personal interpretation. Every listener decides what seems believable. It is little wonder that confusion often spreads before certainty. Picture yourself entering another marketplace several weeks later. Business continues almost normally. Yet something feels slightly different. Conversations pause when unfamiliar travelers arrive. Merchants ask more questions than usual. Has anyone recently visited the eastern cities? What news have they heard? Are the roads still busy? Is trade continuing safely? The answers vary. Some report no problems whatsoever. Others quietly describe places where unusual illness appears to be increasing. Still, life continues. Most people cannot simply stop working because of uncertain rumors. Families need food. Merchants depend upon trade. Farmers must plant crops regardless of distant reports. Daily responsibilities leave little room for worrying about events beyond the horizon. This practical reality becomes one of history's quiet turning points. Many future mistakes begin not because people ignore danger intentionally, but because everyday life demands attention. Imagine a physician hearing these early rumors. He considers the information carefully. Without direct evidence, there is little he can recommend. His patients continue arriving with familiar complaints. Injuries, fevers, childbirth, old age. Nothing yet suggests that an entirely different crisis is approaching. He relies upon established medical knowledge because no alternative exists. This too is understandable. History is easier to judge from the future than from the present. As another evening settles across the trade routes, campfires glow softly beneath countless stars. Travelers wrap themselves in blankets against the cool night air. Animals rest nearby. Someone quietly plays a simple melody on a wooden flute. The sound drifts gently across the darkness before fading into silence. Far away in cities separated by hundreds of miles, other fires burn beneath the same sky. People everywhere continue living ordinary lives. Children fall asleep. Parents plan tomorrow's work. Bakers prepare dough before dawn. Fishermen mend their nets. Monks continue copying manuscripts by candlelight. Kings discuss taxes and borders. Life moves steadily onward. Yet almost unnoticed, the first whispers of a much larger story continue spreading alongside the merchants and pilgrims who travel these ancient roads. The rumors remain faint, uncertain, incomplete. Most people hear them only once before returning to their daily routines. But with every passing season, those whispers travel a little farther. One harbor, one village, one caravan, one conversation at a time. The roads that have carried prosperity for generations are quietly carrying something else as well. No banners announce its arrival. No army marches ahead of it. No messenger rides to warn every kingdom. Instead, it advances with remarkable patience, hidden within the ordinary movements of everyday life. The peaceful world we visited before has not yet changed. But somewhere beyond the next horizon, history has already begun to shift. And soon the rumors that seem so distant will become impossible to ignore. Imagine the gentle rocking of a wooden ship as dawn slowly brightens the horizon. The sea is calm this morning. Soft waves rise and fall beneath the hull with a rhythm that almost resembles quiet breathing. Above, pale clouds drift across the sky, slowly changing from deep blue to shades of silver and gold. The salty air carries the familiar cries of seabirds that have followed the vessel since sunrise. You find yourself standing near the bow, watching the endless water stretch toward every horizon. For the sailors aboard, this is another ordinary voyage. No one speaks of history. No one imagines that future generations will study these peaceful journeys with such careful attention. The crew is concerned with simple matters. Will the wind remain steady? Will the cargo arrive safely? Will the weather allow them to reach the next port before supplies begin to run low? These questions occupy every conversation. The hidden dangers below deck remain entirely unnoticed. Merchant ships during the 14th century were remarkable achievements for their time. Built from sturdy oak, pine, or other local timber, they connected distant kingdoms through trade that seemed almost miraculous. A piece of fine silk woven in Asia might eventually reach a wealthy household in Italy. Spices harvested thousands of miles away could season food in France. English wool traveled toward the weaving centers of Flanders. Italian glass found new homes in ports across the Mediterranean. Every voyage represented months of planning, careful navigation, and patient endurance. Imagine walking slowly across the weathered deck. The wood beneath your feet has been polished smooth by countless sailors over many years. Thick ropes smell faintly of salt and tar. Large barrels are secured carefully against movement during rough seas. Sacks of grain rest beside crates filled with cloth, metal tools, dried fruit, olive oil, wax candles, and carefully wrapped ceramics. Each item has value. Each item has an owner waiting in another city. Below the cargo, in dark corners where sunlight rarely reaches, tiny lives continue unnoticed. Small rodents search quietly for scattered grains. To the sailors, such creatures are an inconvenience rather than a mystery. They nibble food supplies. They chew rope. They hide whenever footsteps approach. Nobody suspects they may also be carrying fleas capable of spreading disease under certain conditions. That understanding belongs to another age. As the morning slowly arrives, the captain studies the wind. Navigation depends upon experience rather than precise instruments. He watches the clouds. He feels the direction of the breeze upon his face. He recognizes familiar stars during clear nights. The sea rewards patience. It also punishes carelessness. Storms can appear with surprising speed. Strong winds may force ships toward unfamiliar coastlines. Yet experienced captains learn to respect nature rather than challenge it. Imagine several days passing peacefully. The crew settles into routine. Some repair worn sails, others clean the deck. Meals remain simple. Dark bread, salted fish, dried beans, perhaps a little cheese when supplies allow. Fresh drinking water is precious and carefully rationed. Conversation drifts between stories of previous voyages and hopes for profitable trade. One sailor speaks fondly of a lively market in Venice. Another remembers the towering walls of Constantinople. Someone recalls hearing music during a festival in Alexandria. Every port has its own memories. Every harbor has its own familiar smells. Some smell of fresh fish. Others carry the fragrance of spices, wine, or cedar wood unloaded from distant lands. These ports are places where worlds quietly meet. Imagine arriving at one such harbor. Long before the ship reaches shore, the sounds of the city drift across the water. Church bells, dock workers shouting instructions, wood striking wood as cargo is unloaded. The gentle splash of smaller boats moving between larger vessels. Seagulls call overhead, always searching for forgotten scraps. The harbor itself is alive. Ships from many regions rest side by side. Some display colorful flags unfamiliar to local merchants. Others have traveled only a short distance. Together they form a floating marketplace connecting continents. As ropes secure the vessel alongside the dock, activity begins immediately. Workers carry heavy barrels upon their shoulders. Merchants inspect cargo lists. Officials collect taxes and record arrivals. Travelers hurry toward inns after weeks at sea. Pilgrims ask for directions. Messengers search for letters waiting from distant relatives. Everything moves with quiet purpose. Life depends upon these arrivals. Yet no inspection looks for invisible illness. No one asks whether disease has crossed the sea. Instead, attention remains fixed upon visible concerns. Is the cargo damaged? Has every barrel survived the voyage? Did pirates attack along the route? Will the market prices remain favorable? These questions seem far more urgent. History rarely announces the questions that matter most. Picture yourself wandering through the narrow streets beside the harbor. Stone buildings rise closely together. Laundry hangs between upper windows. The smell of fresh bread drifts from a nearby bakery. Children chase one another through crowded lanes while craftsmen begin another day's work. Blacksmiths shape glowing iron. Carpenters repair wagon wheels. Tailors stitch wool and linen by open windows where daylight provides their best illumination. Nothing feels unusual. Everything appears wonderfully ordinary. This ordinary life is exactly what makes the coming years so difficult to imagine. Most people have experienced local illnesses before. Seasonal fevers come and go. Small outbreaks sometimes affect neighboring towns. Communities mourn their losses before returning gradually to familiar routines. Few believe an illness could travel from one end of the known world to another. The very idea seems almost impossible. After all, journeys require months, roads are slow, ships depend upon favorable weather. How could sickness keep pace? Without understanding bacteria or fleas, the question has no clear answer. Instead, people trust what experience has always taught them. Distance usually offers protection. Sadly, this assumption will soon prove incomplete. As evening settles over the harbor, lanterns begin appearing one by one. Their warm light reflects gently upon dark water. Voices soften as merchants finish their work. The day's final cargo is secured inside nearby warehouses. Some sailors choose to sleep aboard their ships. Others walk toward familiar inns where warm food and conversation await. The city gradually grows quieter. Yet beneath the peaceful silence, unseen travelers continue their own quiet journey. They ask for no permission, they follow no borders, they leave no footprints. Only much later will people begin connecting these peaceful ports with the first unmistakable signs of something far more serious. For now, however, the ships continue to arrive. The markets remain busy, trade flourishes, and history moves forward with the same gentle rhythm as the sea itself. Imagine the harbor just before sunrise, when the world seems to pause between night and day. A cool mist hangs above the water, softening the outlines of ships anchored close together. Their tall masts rise quietly into the pale sky like a small forest of weathered wood. The sea is almost perfectly still, disturbed only by gentle ripples that spread from a lone fishing boat returning after a night's work. The city has not fully awakened. A few lanterns still glow in the narrow streets near the docks. Bakers have already begun preparing the day's first loaves, and the comforting scent of warm bread slowly drifts toward the waterfront. Somewhere nearby, a blacksmith is already tending his fire, coaxing small orange flames back to life before the morning's work begins. You find yourself walking along the stone quay. The surface beneath your feet is uneven, worn smooth by generations of merchants, sailors, fishermen, pilgrims, and travelers. Every stone seems to carry the memory of countless footsteps. For centuries, ports like this have served as gateways between distant worlds. Here, people exchange far more than goods. Languages blend together. Stories travel farther than maps. Ideas quietly cross borders without anyone noticing. A merchant from Venice may spend the afternoon speaking with traders from the eastern Mediterranean before sharing supper beside sailors who recently arrived from the Black Sea. None of these encounters seem remarkable. In fact, they are signs of prosperity. Busy harbors are often the wealthiest places in medieval Europe. Ships bring opportunity. They also bring uncertainty. Imagine a warehouse standing only a short walk from the docks. Its heavy wooden doors remain open from dawn until dusk, as workers carry goods inside with careful efficiency. Large sacks of grain are stacked neatly against thick stone walls. Barrels of wine rest in long rows. Bales of wool wait patiently for buyers from distant towns. The building smells of fresh timber, rope, spices, damp stone, and grain. It is a familiar smell, a comforting one. To the workers, it simply means another successful trade season. Yet warehouses also offer shelter to creatures that most people barely notice. Small rodents slip through tiny openings beneath the walls. They search for scattered grains left behind after unloading cargo. They build nests among forgotten corners where people rarely look. No one considers this unusual. Rats have shared human settlements for thousands of years. They seem almost as permanent as the buildings themselves. Without modern science, there is no reason to suspect they might sometimes play a role in spreading illness. People simply see them as another small nuisance of everyday life. Picture yourself watching dock workers unload a newly arrived merchant vessel. Each man performs his task with practiced confidence. Heavy crates pass carefully from hand to hand. Bundles of cloth are inspected for water damage. Barrels are rolled across thick wooden planks connecting ship and shore. Nearby, officials record the cargo using neat handwriting in carefully prepared ledgers. Accuracy matters. Taxes depend upon these records. Trade depends upon trust. Business depends upon reputation. Life in the harbor follows rhythms refined over generations. Imagine a young apprentice helping his father organize newly arrived goods. He has spent most of his childhood among these busy streets. The smell of salt water reminds him of home. The sound of creaking ships is as familiar as birds singing in the countryside. He dreams of one day captaining his own merchant vessel. To him, the harbor represents adventure rather than danger. He watches every arriving ship with curiosity, wondering where it has traveled and what remarkable places its crew has seen. His dreams are shared by countless young people growing up beside Europe's great ports. The sea offers possibility. It promises stories waiting beyond the horizon. As the morning slowly arrives, travelers begin leaving the docks. Some continue toward distant cities. Others join caravans heading inland. Pilgrims follow well-known roads toward famous churches and holy shrines. Messengers carry letters sealed with wax. Merchants ride beside wagons filled with expensive cargo. Every departure extends the invisible network connecting one community with another. The roads seem endless. Some pass through forests alive with birdsong. Others climb rocky mountain passes where cool winds sweep across narrow paths. Many follow rivers whose gentle currents have guided travelers for centuries. At every stopping place, strangers meet over shared meals. They exchange news. They ask about weather conditions. They discuss changing prices in distant markets. Occasionally, someone mentions unusual reports from another region. The conversations remain calm. One traveler has heard that an unfamiliar sickness has appeared in a city far away. Another believes the reports are exaggerated. After all, frightening rumors often accompany long-distance trade. Some stories disappear as quickly as they arrive. Others grow larger with every retelling. Most people have learned to treat distant rumors with caution. It seems sensible to wait for clearer information. Imagine sitting beside the fire in a roadside inn after sunset. The room is warm despite the cool evening outside. A pot of vegetable stew simmers slowly over glowing coals. The gentle crackling of burning wood fills the quiet pauses between conversations. Travelers remove dusty boots before settling onto rough wooden benches. Someone begins telling a story about difficult weather at sea. Another laughs softly while recalling a stubborn mule that refused to cross a mountain bridge. Then almost casually, a merchant mentions hearing about another town where many people have recently become ill. The room grows briefly quieter. A few listeners exchange thoughtful glances. No one dismisses the report completely. Yet no one reacts with panic either. Illness is already a familiar part of medieval life. People have lived through fevers, poor harvests, and local outbreaks before. Most assume this new report belongs to the same pattern. The conversation soon returns to ordinary matters. Tomorrow's journey, road conditions, the price of wool, the quality of local bread. The quiet warning fades into the background. History often unfolds in moments exactly like these. Not through dramatic announcements, not through sudden realization, but through ordinary conversations where important information is present without yet revealing its full meaning. Imagine another ship arriving several weeks later. Its voyage has been longer than expected because changing winds force several delays. The crew appears tired but relieved to have reached land safely. Their captain reports difficult conditions at previous ports. Some markets seem strangely quiet. Several familiar merchants were absent. Certain warehouses stood unusually empty. No one knows precisely why. Perhaps trade has simply slowed. Perhaps poor harvests have reduced demand. Perhaps illness has kept people at home. The explanations remain uncertain. Even experienced merchants struggle to recognize patterns spread across such enormous distances. Every city sees only a small part of the larger picture. No single harbor understands what another has witnessed. Information travels slowly. Disease moves quietly. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking the harbor as evening returns once more. The setting sun paints the water with soft golden light. Ships gently rock at their moorings. Smoke rises peacefully from hundreds of chimneys throughout the city. From this distance, everything appears calm, beautiful, unchanging. It is difficult to imagine that these same peaceful ports will soon stand at the center of one of history's greatest challenges. The people living here cannot see what future generations will understand. Their decisions are shaped by knowledge that feels complete, but is, in reality, only a small part of a much larger story. They continue welcoming travelers because trade sustains their cities. They continue unloading ships because families depend upon commerce. They continue opening markets because life must go on. None of these choices are unreasonable. They simply belong to a world that has not yet discovered the invisible nature of disease. As darkness settles gently across the harbor, lanterns begin to shine once again upon the quiet water. The last conversations of the evening drift softly through the cooling air. Far beyond the horizon, more ships are already making their way toward Europe. Their sails are filled by the same winds. Their crews carry the same hopes for safe arrival. And among the ordinary movement of people, goods, and stories, history continues its slow and silent voyage. Imagine another quiet morning unfolding along the Mediterranean coast. The first rays of sunlight stretch across the sea, turning the gentle waves into ribbons of gold. Fishing boats return to shore one by one, their crews greeting familiar faces waiting on the docks. The air smells of salt, damp wood, and fresh fish. Above the harbor, gulls circle patiently, their cries echoing between warehouses built from weathered stone. You find yourself watching the city awaken. Shopkeepers lift heavy wooden shutters from their windows. Street sweepers begin clearing yesterday's dust. A baker places the first warm loaves onto a display near the entrance of his small shop, and before long, customers gather, exchanging quiet greetings as another ordinary day begins. Everything feels reassuringly familiar. The medieval world depends upon routines like these. Regular markets, predictable seasons, trusted trade routes, steady work. These patterns create the comforting belief that tomorrow will resemble yesterday. It is a belief shared across nearly every town and village. Imagine following a merchant as he walks through the busy streets toward the harbor. His purse contains carefully counted silver coins. He has spent years building relationships with captains, craftsmen, and traders from distant lands. Business relies on trust. A handshake often carries as much importance as a written agreement. Each successful voyage strengthens friendships that stretch across seas and mountains. Trade is not simply about goods, it is about people. Over time, merchants come to recognize familiar faces arriving with every season. They know which captain always delivers high-quality wool. They know which spice trader offers the finest cinnamon. They know which sailor tells the most entertaining stories after supper. These personal connections help commerce flourish. They also encourage constant movement between cities. Picture yourself aboard another merchant vessel preparing to depart. The captain checks the sky one final time before giving quiet instructions to his crew. The anchor rises slowly from the seabed. Thick ropes groan under their weight, large sails unfold, catching the gentle morning breeze. Gradually, the harbor begins slipping farther behind. The voyage has begun once again. Life at sea follows a rhythm very different from life on land. Days are measured by the changing position of the sun. Nights are guided by familiar stars. Meals remain simple and practical. Fresh water is carefully protected. Every sailor performs multiple tasks depending upon weather and necessity. During calm afternoons, some men torn sails, while others repair ropes worn by salt and wind. When storms arrive, every hand is needed. Imagine standing on the deck during one peaceful evening. The sea reflects countless stars overhead. The ship moves almost silently through dark water. Only the gentle creaking of timber reminds you that the vessel is alive, responding to every wave beneath it. One sailor begins speaking about unusual news heard during the previous voyage. A certain port had seemed quieter than expected. Several familiar traders were missing. An innkeeper mentioned that many local families had become ill. Another sailor listens thoughtfully before offering a different explanation. Perhaps a poor harvest has kept people at home. Perhaps local conflict has interrupted business. Perhaps the stories have simply grown larger with every retelling. No one can be certain. Without reliable communication, uncertainty becomes part of everyday life. Weeks later, the ship reaches another harbor. Here too, life continues. Markets remain open. Children play in narrow streets. Church bells ring at familiar hours. Yet careful observers notice small differences. A few houses appear strangely silent. Some market stalls stand empty. A merchant quietly explains that several respected craftsmen have recently died after a sudden illness. He does not know why. Neither does anyone else. The deaths seem unfortunate rather than extraordinary. Communities have always experienced loss. The true scale of what is beginning remains hidden. Imagine visiting the home of a local physician. Shelves filled with carefully dried herbs line the walls. Bundles of lavender, rosemary, sage, mint, and chamomile hang from wooden beams, filling the room with gentle fragrance. A patient has arrived complaining of fever and weakness. The physician examines him carefully. He studies the color of his face. He feels his pulse. He asks thoughtful questions about recent meals, sleep, and pain. Every decision reflects the best medical understanding available at the time. No carelessness guides his actions, no lack of compassion, only limited knowledge. He recommends rest, perhaps a carefully prepared herbal remedy, perhaps bloodletting if he believes the body's balance has been disturbed. The treatment is sincere. The illness, however, follows rules no physician yet understands. Outside, the city continues its ordinary rhythm. Blacksmiths shape glowing iron. Tailors measure cloth. Children carry water from public wells. Monks copy manuscripts inside quiet monasteries. Life refuses to pause simply because uncertainty exists. This determination helps communities survive many hardships. It also delays recognition when an unfamiliar danger first appears. Imagine several months passing. Reports of unusual illness become slightly more frequent. Still, they remain scattered. One city experiences losses. Another seems untouched. A third hears only distant rumors. Without seeing the complete picture, every community believes its own experience represents the larger truth. This is one of history's quiet lessons. Human beings naturally understand the world through what they personally observe. When information travels slowly, recognizing widespread patterns becomes remarkably difficult. As the morning slowly arrives across Europe, countless villages continue waking to ordinary sounds. Roosters greet the dawn, mill wheels turn beside flowing rivers. Farmers guide oxen into open fields. Smoke rises gently from cottage chimneys. Life remains peaceful for millions of people who have never heard the troubling stories spreading through distant ports. Somewhere, a child learns to bake bread from her mother. Elsewhere, a father teaches his son how to repair a wooden fence. A shepherd whistles softly while leading sheep across dew-covered hills. These quiet moments continue even as history begins changing beyond the horizon. Imagine standing once more beside the sea. A cool wind brushes gently across your face. Far away, another ship appears as a small shape against the morning light. Soon it will enter the harbor. Its crew hopes for profitable trade. Its passengers look forward to reaching home. Its cargo has been carefully packed. Everything seems perfectly ordinary. No one waiting on the docks has any reason to fear its arrival. That simple trust reflects the world before modern public health. Travelers are welcomed, merchants are celebrated, ships symbolize prosperity. Centuries later, people will understand that some voyages carried more than visible cargo. But in this moment, such knowledge remains impossible. The people of the medieval world continue living with honesty, diligence, and hope. They cannot guard against dangers they do not know exist. As evening slowly settles across another busy harbor, lanterns flicker to life one after another. Their warm reflections dance gently upon the water. Conversations soften. Work comes to an end. Families gather for simple meals. The city grows quiet beneath a sky filled with stars. Beyond the darkness, more ships continue their patient journey toward Europe's shores. Soon, the first unmistakable signs of a far greater crisis will appear. The whispers carried by travelers will become difficult to dismiss.
Ports that once welcomed every arriving vessel with confidence will begin facing questions no generation before them had ever needed to answer. And with those first uncertain days, the medieval world will take its first steps into one of the most challenging chapters of its history. Imagine the sea on a quiet autumn morning. The horizon is wrapped in a light gray mist, and the water moves so gently that it almost seems to be sleeping. A cool breeze carries the scent of salt, seaweed, and damp wood across the harbor. Above the waves, gulls glide effortlessly, their calls echoing between the stone walls of the busy port. You find yourself standing near the city's entrance, watching another merchant ship slowly approach. At first, nothing appears unusual. The sails are worn from a long voyage, but that is common after weeks at sea. The hull bears the familiar marks of storms and rough weather. Sailors move carefully across the deck as they prepare to dock. The people waiting along the waterfront expect another ordinary arrival. Merchants are eager to inspect new goods. Dock workers prepare ropes and wooden planks. Innkeepers quietly hope that weary travelers will rent a room for the night. Children watch with excitement, wondering what distant lands these visitors have seen. Everything follows the familiar rhythm of medieval trade. No one notices the silence aboard the vessel. As the ship drifts closer, a few experienced harbor workers exchange uncertain glances. Something feels different. Normally, sailors wave toward the shore long before reaching the docks. Voices usually carry easily across the water. Captains often shout instructions while preparing to unload cargo. This morning, however, the deck seems strangely quiet. Only a handful of crew members remain visible. They move slowly. Their faces appear tired. Their expressions lack the cheerful relief that usually follows a successful voyage. The harbor master steps forward. His responsibility is simple. He records arrivals, collects taxes, and ensures that business continues smoothly. He has welcomed hundreds of ships during his lifetime. Nothing in his experience prepares him for what he is about to witness. As the vessel finally reaches the dock, the crew lowers the gangplank. The captain climbs onto the stone quay with measured steps. His clothes are stained by weeks at sea. His voice is calm but unusually soft. He explains that many members of his crew became sick during the voyage. Several have already died. Others remain too weak to leave their beds below deck. The harbor grows unexpectedly quiet. Deaths during long voyages are not unheard of. Storms, accidents, and ordinary illnesses sometimes claim lives at sea. Still, the number described by the captain seems unusually high. The harbor master asks careful questions. When did the illness begin? Did it affect everyone equally? Has any other ship reported similar problems? The captain answers as honestly as he can. He simply does not know. Everything happened quickly. Healthy men became weak within days. High fevers appeared without warning. Some developed painful swellings beneath their arms or near their necks. Others struggled to breathe before quietly slipping away. The descriptions trouble those listening. Yet no one immediately imagines a disaster reaching far beyond this single vessel. The sick are carried ashore. Local physicians are summoned. Families open their homes to relatives returning from sea. Business continues around them. After all, one unfortunate voyage cannot stop an entire city. Imagine walking beside one of the physicians as he enters a small room where a sailor rests upon a simple wooden bed. The room is dimly lit. A narrow window allows cool autumn air to enter. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the ceiling. The smell of rosemary and lavender mixes with the heavier scent of sickness. The physician kneels beside his patient. He gently feels the man's forehead. The fever is unmistakable. He examines the swollen areas beneath the sailor's arm. They are painful to the touch. Dark bruises have begun appearing on parts of the skin. The physician pauses thoughtfully. He has studied respected medical texts. He has treated countless fevers. He has cared for victims of injuries, infections, and difficult winters. Yet this illness seems unfamiliar. He recommends treatments based upon everything he has learned. Rest, herbal preparations, careful observation, perhaps bloodletting if the body's balance appears disturbed. His decisions reflect sincere medical practice. Unfortunately, the disease follows its own hidden path. As the morning slowly arrives over the city, ordinary life continues almost unchanged. Market stalls open, church bells ring. Bakers remove warm bread from their ovens. Blacksmiths begin another day's work. Children laugh while carrying water from public wells. The peaceful rhythm of daily life provides comfort. Few people realize that some among them are already carrying an illness before showing any obvious signs. Imagine visiting the marketplace a few days later. The crowd is slightly smaller than usual. A respected merchant has remained home because of the sudden fever. A dock worker failed to appear for work. Several families quietly postpone planned celebrations. Still, most citizens assume these events are unrelated. Autumn often brings illness. People have seen fevers before. Life must continue. Trade cannot simply stop. Food still needs to be bought. Fields still require attention. Shops still need customers. No ruler wishes to close a thriving port based upon uncertain fears. At this early stage, there seems little reason to do so. Without understanding how plague spreads, preventing it becomes almost impossible. Imagine a monastery overlooking the city. Within its peaceful stone walls, monks continue their familiar routines. They rise before sunrise. They pray together. They tend gardens filled with medicinal herbs. Some carefully copy manuscripts by candlelight, preserving knowledge for future generations. Others care for the sick who arrive seeking comfort. Many monasteries become places of refuge during times of illness. The brothers offer food, shelter, and gentle care regardless of personal risk. Their compassion reflects deep faith. Many will continue serving others even as danger quietly grows around them. Picture yourself listening to the evening bells as sunlight fades behind distant hills. Smoke rises gently from hundreds of chimneys. Families gather for supper. Parents tell children stories before bed. The city still appears peaceful, yet beneath that peaceful surface, something has begun to change. The physicians notice it first. Patients are arriving more frequently. The symptoms seem strangely similar. High fever, painful swellings, unexpected weakness. Deaths occurring far more quickly than expected. The pattern remains incomplete, but it is becoming harder to ignore. Imagine the harbor 1 week later. Another ship arrives, then another. Each captain brings similar stories. Illness at sea, unexpected deaths. Ports where business has slowed because so many people have become sick. The rumors that once seemed distant now stand upon the city's own doorstep. Still, certainty remains elusive. No one possesses the knowledge needed to explain what is happening. Some blame unusual weather. Others wonder whether the stars have aligned in troubling ways. Many believe corrupted air, later known as miasma, may be responsible. People burn fragrant herbs, hoping to purify the atmosphere. The smell of incense, rosemary, juniper, and pine begins drifting through certain neighborhoods. The air becomes filled with both hope and uncertainty. These efforts arise from genuine concern. People are trying to protect their families using the best ideas available to them. History deserves kindness when we look back upon these choices. Knowledge grows slowly. Every generation builds upon the discoveries of those who came before. The medieval world simply had not yet reached the scientific understanding that later centuries would develop. As darkness settles across the harbor once again, lanterns flicker softly beside the quiet water. The sea remains as beautiful as ever. Ships continue arriving. The stars shine with the same calm brilliance they have shown for countless generations. Nature itself gives no sign that history has entered a new chapter. Yet within homes, monasteries, workshops, and narrow city streets, the first unmistakable footsteps of the Black Death have reached Europe. The peaceful world we visited at the beginning of this journey has begun to change. Not all at once, not with dramatic announcements, but quietly, patient by patient, street by street, harbor by harbor. And soon, communities across Europe will begin making decisions that they believe are wise. Yet many of those choices, made with limited knowledge and sincere intentions, will become some of the greatest failed mistakes of the medieval plague. Imagine the city several days after the first 6 sailors were carried ashore. Morning arrives just as it always has. The eastern sky slowly brightens, and thin rays of sunlight slip between rows of stone buildings. Church bells greet the new day with their familiar rhythm. Shopkeepers lift their wooden shutters, and farmers arriving from nearby villages begin leading carts toward the marketplace. At first glance, everything appears almost unchanged. Yet if you listen carefully, the atmosphere feels different. Conversations begin in quieter voices. Neighbors pause a little longer before exchanging greetings. Merchants who usually laugh together now speak in thoughtful whispers. No one fully understands why. Only that something unusual seems to be unfolding. You find yourself walking through one of the city's busiest streets. The The smell of freshly baked bread still drifts from the ovens. A cooper shapes wooden barrels outside his workshop. A tailor hangs newly finished garments near his doorway, hoping passing customers will stop to admire his careful stitching. Life continues because it must. Families cannot simply pause their daily routines. Food must still be purchased. Animals still need feeding. Children still require care. The medieval world has no luxury of waiting comfortably inside until danger passes. Most people live one day at a time. Imagine entering the central marketplace. Only a week ago it was filled with cheerful voices. Today the crowd seems slightly thinner. A familiar spice merchant has not opened his stall. An elderly woman quietly explains that he became ill several days earlier. No one knows whether he will recover. Nearby, another merchant shrugs gently. Perhaps it is only a fever. Many illnesses visit the city each autumn. There is no reason to assume this one is different. The customers nod. The explanation sounds comforting. They continue buying vegetables, bread, salted fish, and cloth. Yet almost everyone glances occasionally toward the empty stall. Its silence speaks louder than words. Imagine visiting the home of an ordinary family. The father repairs a wooden chair near the doorway. His wife prepares a simple meal over the fire. Two children quietly play with carved wooden toys beside the hearth. The room smells of smoke, fresh bread, and drying herbs hanging from the ceiling. It feels warm, safe, comforting. Then someone knocks gently at the door. A neighbor has arrived. She explains that another household across the street has fallen ill. The oldest son developed a sudden fever. By evening, his mother also became weak. The family has asked for prayers. The visitors exchange worried expressions. Still, they continue hoping this illness will pass as others have before. Hope remains stronger than fear, at least for now. Picture yourself inside the city's monastery. Once again, the brothers have noticed that more people are seeking help each day. Some arrive exhausted after caring for sick relatives. Others request food because illness has prevented them from working. Several simply ask for prayers. The monks welcome everyone. They prepare herbal infusions. They offer warm meals. They clean wounds. They comfort frightened children. Many understand the personal risk involved, yet compassion remains central to their daily lives. History remembers countless acts of quiet courage performed by people whose names have long since been forgotten. Imagine a physician making his rounds through the city. His leather satchel contains carefully prepared remedies, gathered from years of study. He visits one patient after another. The symptoms appear increasingly familiar. High fever, painful swellings, profound weakness. Sometimes dark marks appear upon the skin. Recovery seems uncertain. The physician records careful observations whenever possible. He speaks with fellow doctors. Each hopes someone may discover an explanation. Some believe unusual weather has corrupted the air. Others suspect a rare imbalance within the body. Still others wonder whether the illness has arrived from distant lands through travelers and merchants. Without microscopes or knowledge of bacteria, every theory remains incomplete. Imagine standing beside the city gates as another caravan approaches. The travelers have spent weeks crossing mountains and valleys. Dust covers their clothing. Their animals move slowly after the long journey. The guards welcome them politely. Trade remains essential. Closing the gates would interrupt supplies of food, cloth, salt, and medicine. Besides, no one yet believes every traveler represents a possible danger. The caravan enters the city, business continues. The invisible story continues alongside it. As the morning slowly arrives across neighboring towns, similar scenes unfold elsewhere. Reports of unusual illness begin appearing in several ports. A few inland communities hear troubling rumors from merchants. Most remain uncertain. Some stories contradict others. One traveler claims an entire district has become dangerously quiet. Another insists business continues normally. Without reliable communication, every report raises as many questions as answers. Imagine listening to conversations inside a crowded tavern that evening. The fire burns warmly. Rain taps softly against the roof. Travelers share simple meals before continuing their journeys. A sailor mentions hearing that another port has experienced many sudden deaths. A merchant quietly responds that similar stories have reached him from elsewhere. The room grows silent for a moment. Then an older traveler speaks gently. He reminds everyone that frightening rumors often spread faster than truth. His words bring temporary comfort. People nod thoughtfully. No one wishes to believe the worst. It is human nature to hope for ordinary explanations. History repeatedly shows this quiet instinct. When faced with uncertainty, people often search first for familiar answers. Imagine returning to the harbor at sunset. The water reflects deep shades of orange and crimson beneath the fading sky. Fishing boats glide slowly toward shore. Workers finish unloading the day's final cargo. Everything still appears peaceful. Yet the harbor master has begun noticing a troubling pattern. More ships are reporting illness. Not every vessel, not every crew, but enough to create growing concern. He writes careful notes in his records, dates, ports visited, numbers of sick sailors. He cannot yet see the larger picture. Still, experience tells him these reports deserve attention. Picture yourself walking through narrow streets after darkness has fallen. Lanterns flicker gently outside homes. Most families have already gathered indoors. The usual sounds of evening seem softer now. Fewer people linger outside talking with neighbors. Doors close earlier. Parents encourage children to remain close to home. These are small changes, almost invisible, yet they reveal that uncertainty has quietly entered daily life. Imagine a young apprentice asking his father whether the stories are true. The father pauses before answering. He does not wish to frighten his son. He simply says that many illnesses come and go. The best thing they can do is continue working, caring for one another, and trusting that better days will return. His answer reflects both love and uncertainty. He cannot offer certainty because none exists. That quiet honesty echoes throughout countless homes across medieval Europe. As another night settles gently over the city, cool air carries the scent of wood smoke through empty streets. The stars appear one by one above rooftops. Somewhere a mother quietly watches over her feverish child. Elsewhere, a physician studies his notes by candlelight, searching for patterns that remain just beyond his understanding. A monk finishes evening prayers before preparing another bed for tomorrow's visitors. At the harbor, another ship waits to enter with the morning tide. Life continues. Hope continues. But so does the illness. Its arrival has been gradual, almost unnoticed. Now, however, the quiet whispers that once traveled only among merchants and sailors are becoming part of everyday conversation. The medieval world stands at the edge of a crisis unlike any it has experienced before. And in the weeks ahead, fear will begin shaping decisions just as much as knowledge. Some choices will save lives. Others, made with sincere intentions but limited understanding, will become the very mistakes that history remembers centuries later. Imagine the city a few weeks later. The arrival of morning no longer feels quite the same. The church bells still ring across the rooftops, their familiar sound carried gently by the cool air. The first sunlight still touches the stone walls, and the smell of fresh bread still escapes from the baker's ovens before dawn. At first glance, the city appears almost unchanged, but if you remain still for a moment, you begin to notice what is missing. The streets are quieter. Fewer voices greet the new day. Several familiar shop doors remain closed. The marketplace, once crowded with merchants calling out their prices, now has empty spaces where busy stalls once stood. You find yourself walking through these streets at a slow and peaceful pace. The cobblestones beneath your feet are still damp from rain that fell during the night. Small puddles reflect the pale morning sky. A cart rolls quietly toward the marketplace, its wooden wheels producing the familiar sound that generations have heard before. Life continues. Yet uncertainty has settled gently over the city like the morning mist. Imagine entering the home of a family whose lives have changed in only a few days. A fire burns softly in the hearth. The room smells faintly of herbs that neighbors have brought in the hope they might help. A father sits beside his wife's bed, holding her hand while she sleeps through another fever. Nearby, two children whisper to one another instead of playing. They have never seen their mother this ill before. Outside the window, ordinary life continues. Inside the cottage, time seems to move much more slowly. Scenes like this begin appearing throughout the city. Not every home, not every street, but often enough that people begin noticing. At first, neighbors offer practical help. They deliver bread, they fetch clean water, they care for animals belonging to sick families. These acts of kindness become quiet reminders that even during difficult times, compassion often spreads more quickly than fear. Many ordinary people risk their own comfort simply because someone nearby needs help. History remembers great kings and famous battles, but it is also shaped by countless small acts of generosity that rarely appear in written records. Imagine following a physician as he walks from house to house. His days have grown much longer. Patients wait outside his door before sunrise. Messengers arrive asking him to visit another family, then another, then another. He works carefully despite growing exhaustion. Each examination brings similar questions. How long has the fever lasted? When did the swelling begin? Has anyone else in the household become ill? He notices something deeply troubling. The illness often appears suddenly. People who seemed healthy only days earlier now struggle even to sit upright. Some recover. Many do not. The physician searches his medical books late into the evening. The familiar explanations no longer seem sufficient. He continues helping because there is nothing else he can do. Imagine the monastery overlooking the city. Its gardens remain peaceful. Lavender sways gently in the breeze. Bees move quietly among flowering herbs. The beauty of the place offers a welcome contrast to the growing worry beyond its walls. Inside, however, the brothers have become busier than ever before. More people seek food. More ask for shelter. More request prayers beside the beds of loved ones. The monks answer each request with calm patience. Some copy comforting passages from sacred texts. Others prepare herbal mixtures according to the medical knowledge of the time. Many spend long hours sitting beside the sick so that no one must face illness alone. Their work is quiet, uncelebrated, yet deeply meaningful. Imagine walking once more towards the harbor. The sea remains as beautiful as ever. Gentle waves continue washing against the stone docks. Ships still arrive from distant ports. Trade has slowed, but it has not stopped completely. Many merchants believe commerce must continue if cities are to survive. Food cannot simply appear on empty tables. Cloth cannot weave itself. Communities depend upon these ships. The harbor master studies each arriving vessel more carefully than before. He asks additional questions. Has anyone become ill during the voyage? Were there unusual deaths at previous ports? Which cities did the crew recently visit? The answers grow increasingly familiar. Another captain reports sudden fever among several sailors. Another mentions quiet streets in a once busy port. Another describes hurried funerals taking place soon after arrival. Piece by piece, the pattern begins revealing itself. Yet no one understands its true cause. Without knowing how plague spreads, every precaution remains uncertain. Some cities begin burning fragrant wood or herbs in public places. People believe pleasant-smelling smoke may cleanse unhealthy air. Juniper, rosemary, pine, frankincense. The sweet scent drifts through narrow streets, offering comfort, if not protection. Others carry flowers or bundles of herbs close to their faces whenever they leave home. Many sincerely believe these simple actions may guard against illness. Looking back from the modern world, it is easy to recognize that these methods could not stop the plague itself. But they reveal something important about human nature. People were not passive. They searched constantly for ways to protect those they loved. They acted according to the best understanding available to them. Imagine a meeting among the city's leaders, merchants, church officials, physicians, local magistrates. They gather inside a stone hall lit by candles, despite the afternoon daylight filtering through tall windows. The mood is thoughtful rather than fearful. Each person brings different concerns. Merchants worry that closing the harbor will leave families without food and destroy the city's economy. Physicians speak of growing numbers of patients. Religious leaders encourage prayer, compassion, and care for the suffering. No single solution satisfies everyone. The greatest challenge lies in uncertainty. No one knows whether the illness will fade naturally or continue spreading. History often places leaders in situations where every available choice carries risk. Imagine evening arriving once again. The marketplace empties earlier than usual. Families return home before darkness. The streets grow quiet. Only the occasional footsteps of a messenger or physician disturb the stillness. High above the city, stars appear one by one, unchanged by human worries below. Nature continues its steady rhythm. The moon rises. The tide changes. The wind carries cool autumn air through the silent streets. Yet within many homes, sleep becomes difficult. Parents listen carefully for the sound of a child coughing during the night. Neighbors wonder whether tomorrow will bring better news. Physicians review every patient they have seen, hoping some overlooked detail might offer an answer. You find yourself standing at the edge of the city just before dawn. Behind you, rooftops stretch toward the harbor where ships gently rock against their moorings. Ahead lies the open road leading toward countless other towns and villages. Travelers continue moving in both directions. Some carry wool, some carry grain, some carry letters, some carry hope. And unknowingly, some continue carrying the illness from one community to another. The peaceful network of roads and sea routes that once symbolized prosperity has become an unseen pathway for one of history's greatest pandemics. No one intended this. No one welcomed it. The medieval world simply lacked the knowledge to recognize what was happening until the signs became impossible to ignore. As the first light of another morning touches the city walls, the realization slowly begins to spread. This is no ordinary fever. This is no local outbreak that will quietly disappear with the changing seasons. Something far larger has arrived. And in the chapters ahead, fear, faith, hope, and misunderstanding will shape decisions across Europe. Some of those decisions will save lives. Others, made with sincere intentions but without the benefit of modern science, will become the greatest failed mistakes of the medieval plague, leaving lessons that would echo across the centuries. Imagine inside a medieval town as the first pale light filters through the small windows of a physician's home. Outside, the streets are unusually calm. A cool breeze carries the scent of damp earth after a night of gentle rain. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell marks the beginning of another day, its familiar sound echoing softly across rooftops still covered with morning dew. You find yourself standing inside a room filled with books, dried herbs, and carefully arranged glass jars. Bundles of sage, rosemary, lavender, and thyme hang from dark wooden beams. A small fire burns steadily in the hearth, warming the room against the cool air of early autumn. On a sturdy oak table rests a collection of handwritten manuscripts, each copied patiently by hand over many years. These books represent generations of medical learning. They contain observations gathered from Greek scholars, Roman physicians, and respected medieval teachers. To the doctor who studies them, they are treasures. They are the closest thing to scientific knowledge available. Imagine the physician opening one of these manuscripts before beginning his rounds. He reads carefully, reviewing familiar teachings that have guided medicine for centuries. According to the understanding of the time, the human body depends upon the balance of 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. When these remain in harmony, a person enjoys good health. When they fall out of balance, illness appears. Today we know this explanation is incorrect. Modern medicine has shown that plague is caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, not by an imbalance of bodily humors. Yet it is important to remember that medieval physicians were not acting carelessly. They were working within the best medical framework their civilization possessed. For hundreds of years, this theory had successfully explained many conditions as people understood them. Questioning it was difficult because there was little evidence pointing toward another explanation. History often advances slowly. New discoveries rarely appear overnight. Instead, knowledge grows one careful observation at a time. Imagine the physician leaving his home with a leather satchel hanging from his shoulder. Inside are carefully prepared remedies, small cloth bags filled with dried herbs, glass bottles containing medicinal oils, simple surgical instruments, bandages made from clean linen. Every item has been selected with care. As he walks through the narrow streets, neighbors greet him respectfully. His work is demanding. He has spent years studying medicine, reading difficult texts written in Latin, and learning from experienced teachers. Many ordinary villagers cannot read these books themselves. They place enormous trust in his judgment. That trust carries a heavy responsibility. The physician reaches his first patient shortly after sunrise. The man has been feverish throughout the night. His wife quietly leads the doctor into a dim room where her husband rests beneath several wool blankets. The physician kneels beside the bed. He gently feels the patient's forehead. The fever is severe. He studies the man's breathing. He examines painful swellings beneath one arm. His expression becomes thoughtful. These symptoms have become increasingly common, yet they still remain deeply puzzling. Following accepted medical practice, he considers how the body's humors might have become unbalanced. Perhaps the patient has eaten unsuitable food. Perhaps unusual weather has affected his health. Perhaps corrupted air has entered his lungs. Each possibility seems reasonable according to the medical knowledge of the 14th century. None revealed the true cause. Imagine the physician preparing one of the most common treatments of his era: bloodletting. Today, the practice often surprises modern readers. Yet during the Middle Ages, it was considered a respected and logical therapy. If illness resulted from an excess of one humor, carefully removing blood appeared to offer a way of restoring balance. Special knives or lancets were used with great care. Sometimes cups were placed over the skin to encourage bleeding. Leeches were also employed in certain cases. The physician performs the procedure calmly and professionally. He believes he is helping. His patient trusts him completely. Neither realizes that bloodletting will not stop the plague. In fact, patients already weakened by severe infection may become even less able to recover. This would later become one of the greatest failed medical practices associated with the Black Death. Not because it lacked compassion, but because its underlying theory was mistaken. Imagine another patient arriving later that afternoon. She complains of weakness, headache, and fever. The physician recommends rest, clean bedding, light meals, and herbal remedies. Some of these suggestions may actually provide modest comfort. Certain herbs possess gentle, soothing properties. Rest supports the body's strength. Clean surroundings reduce exposure to other illnesses. Although these measures cannot cure plague, they are not entirely without value. History is rarely divided into complete success or complete failure. Many medieval treatments combined useful observations with incorrect explanations. This complexity reminds us that progress often comes gradually. Picture yourself walking through the physician's herb garden behind his home. Rows of medicinal plants sway gently in the afternoon breeze. Mint grows beside chamomile. Fennel stands near sage. Calendula blooms brightly among carefully tended beds. Every plant has been cultivated for a purpose. Some ease pain, others calm the stomach. Several help clean wounds. May remain valuable even in modern herbal traditions. The physician gathers leaves with practiced hands. He prepares infusions, ointments, and poultices for patients throughout the town. His dedication is genuine. His understanding is simply incomplete. As the morning slowly arrives on another day, more patients begin filling his waiting room. The physician notices something troubling. The illness progresses with remarkable speed. Treatments that seem effective for ordinary fevers accomplish very little here. Entire households become sick within days. Recovery becomes increasingly rare. He records careful notes whenever possible. Perhaps one day another physician will recognize a pattern he has overlooked. Imagine a quiet conversation between two experienced doctors meeting after sunset. They compare observations. One has noticed painful swellings appearing before high fever. Another reports dark patches upon the skin of several patients. They discuss weather conditions, diet, recent arrivals from distant ports, the quality of local water. Neither mentions bacteria. Neither speaks of fleas. Those discoveries remain centuries away. Still, both men continue searching honestly for answers. Their discussion reflects an important truth. Science depends upon asking questions, even when the answers remain hidden. Outside, evening settles gently across the town. The streets grow still. Smoke rises from household chimneys. Families gather around simple meals, while quietly hoping that tomorrow will bring better news. The physician returns home, exhausted. He washes carefully. He organizes his medicines for another day. Before sleeping, he opens one of his treasured manuscripts once more. He reads slowly by candlelight, searching for wisdom that might help his patients. The words have guided physicians for generations. Tonight, however, they seem strangely incomplete. The plague has begun revealing the limits of medieval medicine. Not because doctors lacked intelligence, not because they lacked compassion, but because history had not yet uncovered the invisible world of microbes. Without that knowledge, even the wisest physician could only work with what he could see, hear, and understand. And as more families fell ill, those limitations would become increasingly painful. The greatest medical mistake of the medieval plague was not ignorance born of carelessness. It was confidence in explanations that seemed entirely reasonable until confronted by a disease unlike anything Europe had experienced before. The search for answers would continue. So would the quiet determination of countless physicians who refused to abandon their patients, even when every familiar treatment seemed to fail. Imagine another peaceful dawn settling over the town after a long night of quiet uncertainty. A gentle fog rests across the narrow streets, softening the outlines of stone cottages and wooden workshops. The cool air carries the scent of wet grass, smoke from dying hearth fires, and freshly baked bread that has only just begun to emerge from the ovens of the town's bakers. The morning feels calm. The birds sing exactly as they did yesterday. The river continues its slow journey beneath the old stone bridge. The wind stirs the leaves of nearby trees with the same quiet rhythm that has comforted generations. Nature offers no sign that anything has changed. Yet inside many homes, people awaken with growing concern. You find yourself following a physician as he prepares for another demanding day. His satchel is heavier than it once was. Not because he carries more medicine, but because he now visits far more patients than ever before. Every knock at his door brings another request for help. Every messenger carries news of another household where illness has appeared. His work has become a journey from one bedside to the next. He no longer measures his days by sunrise and sunset alone. Instead, he remembers them by the faces of those he has tried to comfort. Imagine entering the first home he visits. The room is quiet, except for the soft crackling of a fire. A mother sits beside her young daughter, gently placing a cool cloth upon the child's forehead. The physician kneels beside the bed and begins his examination with great care. He notices the familiar signs. The fever is high. The child seems exhausted. A painful swelling has appeared near her neck. The doctor speaks softly with the family. He asks when the illness began, whether anyone else has become sick, whether the girl has recently traveled or welcomed visitors from another town. The parents answer every question as carefully as they can. They hope that somewhere among these details lies the key to saving their daughter. The physician hopes the same. Imagine him reaching into his satchel. This time he prepares an herbal drink made from ingredients respected for generations: willow bark, mint, chamomile, sage. Such remedies may help ease discomfort or reduce certain symptoms. Some herbs truly possess gentle medicinal qualities. Even today, modern science recognizes that a few traditional plants contain useful compounds. Yet none of these preparations can eliminate the plague itself. The doctor does not know this. He believes he is offering the finest care available. His knowledge has been shaped by centuries of respected teaching. It is not laziness that limits him. It is the absence of discoveries the future generations will eventually make. Picture yourself walking through the marketplace later that morning. Something has changed. The usual crowd has grown noticeably smaller. Several stalls remain empty. Some merchants have chosen to stay home, others have become patients themselves. The cheerful sounds of bargaining have become quieter. People speak politely but keep their conversations brief. Many finish their shopping quickly. Before returning home, no official order has been given. Yet caution has quietly begun influencing daily life. Imagine two neighbors meeting beside the town well. They exchange warm greetings, as always. Then one lowers her voice. She mentions hearing that another family has fallen ill. The second woman sighs gently. She has heard similar news from the next street. Neither wishes to spread frightening rumors. Neither wants to believe the illness is becoming more common. Still, the pattern grows harder to ignore. Fear rarely arrives all at once. More often it settles slowly into ordinary conversations. Picture yourself inside the physician's study that evening. Candles flicker gently against the walls. Their warm light falls across open manuscripts filled with notes written over many years. The doctor has begun keeping careful records of his patients. He writes the date each illness began. He records the symptoms. He notes which treatments were attempted. He marks whether recovery followed. His handwriting remains steady, but his thoughts have become increasingly troubled. The familiar medical explanations no longer seem sufficient. He has followed every accepted practice. He has consulted respected texts. He has spoken with fellow physicians. Still, the illness continues. Imagine another doctor arriving to visit. The two men sit together beside the fire, discussing everything they have observed. One believes unusually damp weather may have weakened the population. The other wonders whether polluted air drifting from crowded neighborhoods has contributed to the disease. They discuss diet, seasonal changes, recent trade, religious processions. Nothing fully explains what they are witnessing. Modern readers may wonder why no one suspected tiny living organisms. The answer is beautifully simple. No one had ever seen them. Without microscopes, bacteria remained completely invisible. People cannot easily investigate what they cannot observe. History asks every generation to work with the tools it possesses. The medieval physician's greatest limitation was not his willingness to learn. It was the invisible nature of the problem itself. Imagine walking through one of the town's narrow streets after sunset. The air has grown cooler. Most windows now glow softly with candlelight. Families have gathered indoors for supper. The smell of vegetable stew drifts from open chimneys. Some homes remain peaceful. Others have become strangely quiet. Behind one closed door, a family whispers evening prayers around the bed of a sick grandfather. Across the street, neighbors quietly leave fresh bread outside another household, hoping to help without disturbing those inside. These small acts of kindness continue even as uncertainty grows. Compassion remains one of the strongest threads holding communities together. Imagine a monastery on the edge of town. Its gardens remain carefully tended despite the growing demands placed upon the brothers. They continue gathering medicinal herbs, preparing food, caring for the weak. Many monks have begun studying older medical writings, once again, hoping some forgotten observation may prove useful. Some manuscripts describe earlier outbreaks of disease. Others recommend cleansing the air with fragrant smoke or avoiding unpleasant odors. The monks follow these suggestions faithfully. They burn rosemary, juniper, and incense inside infirmaries. The pleasant scent fills the quiet rooms. It offers comfort to patients. It eases anxious minds, but cannot stop the invisible bacterium responsible for the plague. Even so, their efforts are not meaningless. The calm presence of a caring person can itself become a powerful form of healing, even when the disease cannot yet be cured. Imagine the physician returning home beneath a sky filled with stars. He pauses before entering his house. The town around him has become unusually silent. Only the distant barking of a dog and the gentle rustling of leaves interrupt the stillness. He reflects upon the many patients he has seen that day. Some appeared slightly stronger. Others seemed much weaker. He cannot predict which will recover. That uncertainty weighs heavily upon him. Yet tomorrow he will rise before sunrise once again. He will refill his satchel. He will visit every patient who calls for him. He will continue searching for answers. History often remembers the failures of medieval medicine. It should also remember the quiet perseverance of those who practiced it. They walked toward danger while many others stepped away. They cared for strangers knowing they themselves might become ill. They worked without understanding the true enemy they faced. Their greatest mistake was not a lack of courage. It was trusting medical theories that had guided generations before them, but were powerless against a disease caused by something no human eye had yet seen. As another peaceful night settles across the town, the stars continue shining above rooftops unchanged by human suffering. The plague moves silently from household to household. And across Europe, countless physicians are beginning to ask the same difficult question. If every trusted remedy has failed, what have we failed to understand? Imagine the quiet passing of centuries. The stone roads that once carried merchants, pilgrims, and frightened travelers are now covered by the footsteps of generations who came long after the Black Death. The wooden ships that crossed medieval seas have disappeared into history. The voices of physicians, monks, farmers, and families who lived through those difficult years have become distant echoes. Yet their experiences remain not because the plague was only a story of suffering, but because it was also a story of human choices, a story of what people knew, a story of what they misunderstood, a story of how ordinary individuals faced an extraordinary challenge with the limited knowledge of their own time. You find yourself standing in a quiet medieval village at sunset. The fields are peaceful. The wind moves gently through the grass. A small stream flows beside the old path, where villagers once carried water and travelers once continued their journeys. Life has returned. Children laugh. Farmers work the land. Smoke rises from chimneys. The sounds of daily life slowly replace the silence that once followed the plague. The world did not end. Humanity continued. This may be the most important lesson left behind by the Black Death. The plague revealed weaknesses in medieval society, but it also revealed incredible strength. Imagine the first great mistake again. People did not understand the true cause of the disease, and they searched for explanations using the knowledge available to them. Some believed unhealthy air carried illness. Some believed the stars influenced human health. Some believed spiritual causes explained physical suffering. These ideas were incorrect, but they were not born from laziness. They came from a world without modern science, without microscopes, without knowledge of bacteria. The people of the Middle Ages were not unable to think. They were simply living before certain discoveries became possible. History teaches us an important lesson here. Every generation has blind spots. Every era has questions it cannot yet answer. The mistakes of the past remind future generations to remain humble. Imagine the physicians who walked through plague-filled streets. They carried their small bags of medicines. They studied their manuscripts. They searched for solutions while watching their patients suffer. Many treatments failed. Bloodletting failed. Certain traditional remedies failed. Old explanations failed. Yet the physicians continued. They visited the sick. They offered comfort. They tried again the next day. Their greatest achievement was not discovering a cure. It was refusing to abandon people during a time of fear. Picture yourself inside a medieval home during those years. A small candle burns beside a wooden table. A family sits close together. Outside, the village has become quieter. But inside, people still share food. They still tell stories. They still pray. They still hope. Even during the darkest moments, human beings continued creating moments of warmth. A neighbor leaving bread at a doorway, a monk offering shelter, a stranger helping a traveler, a family caring for an elderly relative. These small actions became a form of resistance against despair. The plague changed Europe forever. Millions of people died. Communities disappeared. Families were separated. The loss was beyond anything many societies had experienced before. But from this tragedy, changes slowly emerged. Labor became more valuable because so many workers had been lost. Some surviving peasants gained opportunities that their ancestors never had. Economic systems began changing. Social structures that had existed for centuries became less stable. People questioned old traditions. New ideas slowly developed. The world after the plague was not the same world that existed before it. Imagine Europe waking from a long and painful night. The streets slowly fill again. Markets reopen. Fields are cultivated. Buildings are repaired. New children are born. New generations grow up carrying memories of those who were lost. The scars remain, but so does life. The Black Death became one of history's greatest reminders that societies must learn from their failures. Clean water matters. Public health matters. Scientific investigation matters. Accurate information matters. Understanding disease matters. The medieval world did not possess these tools in the way modern societies do, but their struggles helped future generations understand why such knowledge is important. Imagine looking back across the centuries. The plague is no longer only a story of death. It is also a story of discovery, a story of how humans slowly learned that invisible forces could shape the visible world, a story of how questions eventually led to answers, a story of how mistakes became lessons. As the morning slowly arrives over the same landscapes where medieval villages once stood, the world feels peaceful again. Birds sing above fields that have seen countless generations. Rivers continue flowing beside ancient paths. Old stones remain beneath layers of time. The people who lived through the plague are gone, but their experiences continue speaking. They remind us that knowledge grows slowly, that compassion matters, that courage does not always look like victory. Sometimes courage is simply showing up. Sometimes it is caring for someone when answers are unavailable. Sometimes it is continuing forward when the future feels uncertain. You find yourself walking along an old medieval road one final time. The path disappears into the distance. The wind moves gently through the grass. There are no crowds, no ships arriving, no frightened voices, only the quiet sound of history resting beneath the earth. The Black Death was one of humanity's greatest tragedies, but it was also a chapter in a much larger story, a story about learning, a story about survival, a story about people who faced the unknown and continued searching for hope. And perhaps that is the final lesson of the medieval plague. The greatest mistakes of the past are not remembered only to judge those who made them. They are remembered so that future generations may see farther, understand more, and make wiser choices. The world changes. Knowledge grows. But the human desire to protect, care, and continue remains the same. And as the last light of evening fades across the fields of medieval Europe, the sounds of the past become quieter. The bells stop ringing. The roads become still. The stories settle into history. Yet they remain with us, waiting patiently, reminding us that even in the darkest chapters, humanity has always searched for the light.